Hey there, deep divers. It really gets me sometimes, like how much history we're talking about, packed into a single day. And well, today, October 26th, it's a great example.
Oh yeah, for sure. Every single day, it's got its own little set of events and some amazing people too. And when you start digging into it, oh man, you never know what you're going to find.
Absolutely. And that's exactly what we're going to do in this deep dive. We're exploring October 26th, but get this, we're using a source that you might not expect, the Arabic Wikipedia page for this date.
I know, right? You wouldn't think it, but it's packed full of interesting stuff.
It is global figures, big events, and even some really interesting coincidences.
Yeah, it just shows you knowledge and history. They can be found in the most unexpected places.
Okay, so let's dive into the history first. We're starting with, well, a peaceful separation. Norway gaining independence from Sweden back in 1905. When you think about it, peaceful separations like this, they're pretty rare, historically speaking, right?
Yeah, you're right. History's usually full of conflict, especially when new nations are born. So the fact that Norway and Sweden, they managed to do this peacefully, that says a lot about them, about their commitment to diplomacy. And their shared history, of course.
It makes you think about what was different, What factors led to such a different outcome compared to other independence movements? Now, jump ahead just 40 years to 1945, and we have the official start of the United Nations. This one's huge.
Huge, absolutely. I mean, after World War II, the world was just desperate for a way to prevent another war like that. So creating the UN with its focus on, well, international cooperation. And of course, conflict resolution. That was a huge step towards peace.
Absolutely. And at the heart of it all, of course, you have the Security Council with all its, power dynamics and the responsibility for keeping the peace. But I mean, as we all know, conflict didn't just disappear with the UN, right? In 1954, just 9 years after the UN was founded, Egyptian President Gamal Abdel Nasser survived an assassination attempt. The Manchea incident. Do you remember? It was a crazy scene.
Oh, yeah, it was chaotic.
Yeah.
A real reminder of just how messed up things were in the Middle East during the Cold War. I mean, Nasser, he was a champion of pan-Arabism, a real challenge to the West. So he was a target for a lot of different groups.
Yeah.
It really shows you how volatile things were.
It does. Now, changing gears a bit, let's talk about the coronation of Mohammad Reza Pahlavi as the Shah of Iran. This was in 1967. This event, well, it marked the continuation of the Pahlavi dynasty, but it kind of foreshadowed the events that would lead to the Iranian Revolution in 1979.
Yeah, it's amazing how some events, they can just seem, I don't know, almost inevitable when you look back at them. The coronation, sure, it was a celebration, of tradition and power, but it also held the seeds of all that future turmoil.
It makes you wonder about the forces at play, right? The seen and unseen, that shape history. But before we dive into revolutions, let's focus on a moment of hope. The signing of the Jordanian-Israeli peace treaty in 1994. After, well, decades of conflict, this treaty was a huge step toward peace in the Middle East.
It really was a testament to the power of, talking to each other.
Yeah.
And of course, the courage of the leaders who were willing to take those risks for peace.
Mm-hmm.
The treaty, it was a real landmark achievement. I mean, it was showing that even in regions where there's so much conflict, peace is still possible.
It does. It gives you hope. Okay, back to some of the harder events of October 26th. In 2002, the world watched in horror as Chechen rebels took over a Moscow theater, taking something like 800 people hostage.
Yeah, that was just awful. Just a horrifying act of terrorism. And the fact that so many people died during the rescue, it raised a lot of questions, about how to deal with these situations. It was a brutal reminder, too.
Yeah.
The human cost of conflict and how hard it is to combat terrorism.
It was a dark day, for sure. Now, shifting gears to a different kind of tragedy, let's talk about the Cedar Fire of 2003 in California. This wildfire was massive. I mean, the second largest in California's history. And it caused so much destruction, just scorched over 1,000 square kilometers of land.
Oh, man. It's hard to even imagine a fire that big. A real reminder of nature's power, and, well, how important it is to be prepared for wildfires and, of course, prevent them. And the sad thing is, with climate change, we're probably going to see more of these.
Yeah, it's scary to think about. Now, let's wrap up this look at the historical side of October 26th with a more recent event, the 2017 chemical attack on Khan Sheikhoun in Syria. This attack was just horrifying, resulted in the deaths of so many civilians, including children. It really brought the Syrian conflict and the use of chemical weapons back into the spotlight.
Yeah, it was just a terrible reminder of how brutal war is and the innocent people who suffer because of it. It also led to more scrutiny of the Syrian government and their allies, of course, and it was condemned all over the world.
It's heartbreaking, how even now in the 21st century, we still can't seem to prevent atrocities like this. So, from peaceful separations to devastating tragedies, October 26th has seen it all. But you know what? It's also a day that some pretty remarkable people were born on.
Oh, absolutely. Every date has its own group of, notable births, and October 26th is no exception.
Ready to explore some birthdays?
Yeah, let's celebrate some lives that began on this date.
Okay, let's start our birthday celebration with a musical legend. Domenico Scarlatti, the Italian Baroque composer, born way back in 1685. His harpsichord sonatas, man, they're just incredible. So much energy and complexity, like musical fireworks.
Yes, Scarlatti was a true innovator. His sonatas, they broke all the rules,
Yeah.
pushing the boundaries of keyboard music, influencing so many composers who came after him.
Definitely left his mark on music history. Now, this next guy might not be a household name, but he had a big impact on military strategy. Helmuth von Moltke the Elder, a Prussian military leader born in 1800. He really helped modernize the Prussian army, which led to some pretty big victories in the 19th century.
Yeah, Moltke was a master strategist, known for his emphasis on planning and logistics and adapting, being able to change on the fly. His ideas, they really changed the way people thought about war.
So even if people don't know his name, his influence is still felt in military circles today. Now, let's move on to a voice that touched millions. Mahalia Jackson, the amazing gospel singer. Born in 1911, her voice was just so powerful and her performances so deeply spiritual, she became a true icon.
Mahalia Jackson, she was more than just a singer, though. I mean, she was a force of nature, really. Her music, it went beyond genre. It became a voice for the civil rights movement and inspired people all over the world.
Her version of We Shall Overcome, it still gives me chills. And speaking of influential figures, let's talk about a president. François Mitterrand of France. Born in 1916, he holds the record for the longest-serving president of France, 14 years in office.
Wow, 14 years, that's a long time. Mitterrand's presidency, it spanned a time of real change in France and Europe. He dealt with the end of the Cold War, oversaw economic reforms, left a real mark on French politics and society. His legacy, well, it's still debated, but you can't deny his impact.
14 years at the helm of a nation, that's incredible. It makes you wonder how he did it, how he stayed in power for so long and what his vision for France really was.
Okay, so remember earlier when we talked about the Shah of Iran? Well, get this. Mohammad Reza Pahlavi, the last Shah, he was also born on October 26th in 1919, same day as his coronation years later.
Wow, what a coincidence, it's almost like. His birth date foreshadowed his destiny and Dia. Talk about a life full of drama. His reign, it saw modernization, but also intense social unrest, which of course led to his overthrow during the Iranian Revolution.
It shows that even if you're born into power, you're not immune to the forces of history. Now let's talk about someone who has shaped American politics for decades. Hillary Clinton, born in 1947, First Lady, Senator, Secretary of State, presidential candidate, she's done it all.
Hillary Clinton, yeah, she's one of the most influential women in modern American history, for sure. Her career, it's had its ups and downs, but her resilience, her commitment to public service, and her strong voice on issues like healthcare and women's rights, they've all made a difference. She's definitely a polarizing figure, but you can't deny her influence on American politics. Okay, moving on to South America, we have Evo Morales, the first indigenous president of Bolivia, born in 1959. His election was a huge moment, not just for Bolivia, but for indigenous representation in Latin America.
Yeah, Morales' presidency, it really challenged the old ways. In Bolivia, brought indigenous issues to the forefront, and he put in place social programs to reduce poverty. And inequality, his time in office, well, it was marked by progress, but also controversy. But his impact on Bolivian society, it can't be denied.
It's interesting how all these people from all over the world with such different backgrounds, all born on the same day, have made such a mark on the world. And to wrap up our birthday list, here's a fun fact. 2 prominent Egyptian actors share this birthday. Hani Ramsey, he's known for his comedic roles. He was born in 1964. And Amina Khalil, a rising star in Egyptian cinema. She was born in 1988.
Wow, 2 actors, same birthday. Interesting. Maybe October 26th is a good day to be born if you want to be in entertainment.
Maybe. You never know. Okay, as we move on to the next part of our deep dive, we have to acknowledge that October 26th, it hasn't just been about new life, It's also seen the passing of many important people. Their stories are part of history, reminding us of the impact that individuals can have, for better or worse.
A reminder of the cycle of life and how important it is to remember those who came before us.
Ready to explore some of these notable deaths?
Sure, let's take a moment to reflect on these lives and their legacies.
All right, let's start our look at some notable deaths on October 26th with a real legend in English history, Alfred the Great, the King of Wessex. He died on this date in 899, best known for defending England from those Viking raids.
Alfred the Great, he was more than just a warrior king, though. He was a scholar, a reformer, a real visionary leader. He laid the groundwork for a unified England.
Wow, pretty impressive.
Yeah, I mean, he promoted education, reformed the legal system, and strengthened England's defenses. His impact on English culture and history is still felt today.
It's amazing how some leaders have such a lasting impact. We should also mention another king who died on this date, King Andrew II of Hungary, back in 1235. Okay, now this next one is someone whose work has brought joy to generations of kids and adults too. Carlo Collodi, the Italian author who created Pinocchio. He died on October 26 in 1890.
Pinocchio, such a classic story. That tale of a wooden puppet who wants to be a real boy, it still captures the imagination of people all over the world. It's a story about honesty and responsibility, and the power of love to change us.
It really is a timeless story. Now let's move on to someone who played a key role in shaping modern Japan. Ito Hirobumi, the country's very first prime minister. He died on this date in 1909.
Hirobumi was a real driving force behind Japan's modernization. In the late 19th and early 20th centuries, he led the country through some massive changes. Rapid industrialization, political reforms, helped make Japan a major world power.
Wow, it's fascinating how individuals can shape a nation's destiny like that. Now, speaking of groundbreaking people, we have to mention Hattie McDaniel, the first African-American to win an Oscar. She passed away on this date in 1952.
That's right, McDaniel's win for her role in Gone with the Wind. It was a historic moment in Hollywood, broke down racial barriers, and opened doors for black actors in film. But her career also shows just how bad the racism and segregation were in Hollywood at the time.
It's a reminder that progress isn't always easy, and even when people achieve incredible things, they can still face discrimination. Now here's something you don't see every day. In 1957, 2 Nobel laureates died on the same day, October 26th. Biochemist Gertie Cori, she won the Nobel Prize in Medicine in 1947 for her work on carbohydrate metabolism. And Nikos Kazantzakis, the Greek writer, he was nominated for the Nobel Prize in Literature several times.
Wow, what a coincidence. 2 brilliant minds from different fields, both leaving their mark on the world, and they pass away on the same day. It really makes you think, doesn't it? Mm. Okay, let's jump back to politics for a moment. Park Chung-hee, the president of South Korea, he led the country through a period of huge economic growth, what they call the miracle on the Han River. But he was assassinated on this date in 1979.
Park Chung-hee, yeah, he was a controversial figure. He's credited with turning South Korea into an economic powerhouse, but he was also an authoritarian leader. And there were a lot of human rights violations during his rule. His legacy is still debated today.
It's a good reminder that even leaders who achieve economic success can have a dark side. And, well, sticking with complex political legacies, in 1995, Fatih Shikaki, the founder of the Palestinian Islamic Jihad movement, was assassinated in Malta.
Shikaki's assassination was a turning point. In the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, it really increased tensions, made the path to peace even more difficult. It highlights the deep divisions and the cycle of violence that has plagued the region for so long. A tragic reminder of how hard it is to break free from that cycle. And finally, a more recent event. The death of Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi, the leader of ISIS, back in 2019.
Al-Baghdadi's death was a huge setback for ISIS. But the ideology, the networks of extremism, they're still out there, still a threat. It shows how hard it is to fight terrorism and how important it is for countries to work together to address the root causes of extremism.
It's a sobering reminder that the fight against terrorism continues, and we have to stay vigilant in our efforts to create a more peaceful world. So, as we wrap up this deep dive into October 26th, it's clear that this date, it might seem ordinary at first glance, but it's anything but. We've gone from peaceful separations to devastating tragedies, celebrated the births of geniuses and political leaders, and remembered the passing of leaders, artists, and scientists.
It's been quite a journey through history, showing us how every day, even the ones that seem ordinary, are part of the bigger story of humanity.
Absolutely. So as you go about your day today, take a moment to think about the events and the people we've talked about. Which ones stuck with you? What made you curious? Maybe you share a birthday with one of these figures, or have a personal connection to one of the events. Keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep diving deep. Until next time.